page?
We are on page 51 in your literature book. We are continuing our discussion on Across 5 Aprils. I feel like this has taken forever, but we'll blame at least part of that on Terra Nova testing. Okay, and we also don't get as far as quickly as the 7th and 8th graders do in their literature because we also have to take time every day to do spelling. And you don't have to do spelling in 7th and 8th grade. And the people rejoiced. Yes. Now, do I count off for things that are misspelled when you write me papers?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. So in a way, you're still doing spelling. But okay, so we're on page 51. Now, we talked about conflict. That should be in your notes, yes? The different kinds of conflict. Internal conflict, external conflict. Don't look at me blank. This is in your notes, yes.
Oh, I can name all the different types of
okay, awesome, perfect. Okay, so we did talk about it. I that's not what I'm asking. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I was like, I'm pretty sure we talked about this, but I didn't want to like throw it out there and then you guys be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Mrs. Hanson. So, okay, so Jethro is experiencing some internal conflict right now. It's amazing how well that eyebrow works when people are like making noise and I just do the eyebrow and they're like, okay. Bella, if you're watching, Johnny was making some noise and I just gave him this look and he quit. It was amazing. It was like instant magic. Okay, so internal conflict. What is the only kind of conflict, man versus what, that's internal? Talon?
Man versus man? No, it's external.
Man versus self. Man versus self. You're like man versus man. Well, no. Man versus self is the internal. Okay, so Jethro is having an internal conflict here. He's having a man versus self conflict. What is it that's happening that is the conflict? What's going on in Jethro's mind that would cause this conflict?
His cousin Eb is a deserter, and he just found him right next to their fields, and he was plowing the fields with his team, and he's doesn't know like what to do.
Yeah.
He wants to help him, but he's not sure what to do.
Yeah, and that's really it. That's really very good, Johnny. He wants to help him because he loves his cousin, but he knows that helping him's against the law. And so there's this tension there inside of him with this is the right thing to do, but this is also the right thing to do. How can I make these things work together? We often have internal conflicts like that in our own lives. Like I want to do this thing and I want to do this thing, and they're both good things, so I need to figure out which is the better thing to do, which is the more right thing to do. Who was Jethro frightened for? Grace?
His family, because he didn't want them to get in trouble?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of them. And in case you didn't hear, Grace said his family, because he didn't want them to get in trouble. Who else was he frightened for? Talon?
Eb.
He's frightened for Eb. I don't want anything to happen to my cousin. I love my cousin. I don't want anything to happen to him. And then who else is he frightened for? Brady? Himself, yeah. Himself. He's frightened for himself. This is a scary situation. I mean, if you can imagine kind of, it would be hard to put yourself in because we don't really have anything like that kind of going on right now. But, you can kind of sympathize. This is a hard situation for everybody. How long had Eb been in battle? How long had he been gone? How long had he been in battle? Do you know?
Okay.
Well, it does mention it on this page. So let's see if you can find it.
He was at Point Prospect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little difficult to find. He'd been there for how many years? It's at the bottom of the first column.
What first column?
On page 51. Talon?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. 2 years. He'd been in battle for 2 years. So it's not like he was in one battle and then deserted right away, right? He'd been through a lot. I know we've talked about that before, but he'd been in battle for 2 years, and that's a lot for any person. That's quite a tour of duty. Okay, so Nancy is married to one of Jethro's brothers. Which brother is she married to? Johnny?
John.
John! Yeah, that's awesome. John. She was married to John. And which army did John fight for? What side was John fighting on? John was gunfighting. Brady? Louder.
Union.
Union is correct. Union is correct. He was fighting for the Union Army. It's interesting here that Jethro is not judging Eb. It would be really easy for him to judge Eb. You know, it'd be really easy for him to go, you know, you're a coward, I'm ashamed of you, yeah. It'd be real easy to be judgy, wouldn't it?
He
But
did
he
that
doesn't.
a tiny bit.
A little bit.
That's why Ed went on the rant about he hasn't been through what he's been through.
Well, yes. But here's the thing, is overall, Jethro is not judgy toward him. He's trying to understand his situation. What do you think, or how is that happening? What's Jethro doing that helps him to kind of have compassion?
He asks Ed questions.
He's asking Ed questions, and that's one of the things we need to do if we don't understand why somebody's doing what they're doing, is asking them questions. Another thing that we do, my mother-in-law, my husband talks about my mother-in-law always saying this to them: put yourself in the other guy's shoes. Try to think about what you would do if those same things happened to you. We all like to think we'd be better than that, right? But if we're honest, we might have trouble the same way Eb did. And so putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to think about how you would react in those situations, and being really honest about that helps you to have compassion. What do you think? This is totally hypothetical, okay? 100% opinion question. What do you think you would do if you had been in Eb's situation? Knowing the kind of person that you are, what do you think? Do you think, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but think about it. Do you think you would have been a deserter, or do you think you would have stuck it out? Grace?
Well, especially in the conditions he's in, like with the food and the water and everything, the supply of food, but especially with his friend dying, right in the middle, and then him just staying would be really hard. So I'd probably want to leave too.
Yeah, well, you would want to, for sure. At least you would want to. Whether or not you would's another story. You need a Kleenex?
What?
You need a Kleenex? No, you good? Okay.
I have it.
Yeah, my allergies have been really bad the last few days too. Okay.
I don't have it.
Do you not? So you think you just have a little cold? Okay.
Jesus.
What about Jethro? What do you think you would do in Jethro's situation? Jethro's in a difficult situation now too, isn't he? What do you think you would do if you were Jethro?
I'd find a way to feed him.
You'd find a way to feed him. You think you would? Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy situation. And what's funny is, even though this book is historical fiction, even though this is fiction, there were a lot of people who were in situations very similar to this one. So this is not out of the realm of possibility for being close to a true story. Do you know what I mean? Like, this could have happened. This is not unrealistic, because there were a lot of people in this situation. Jethro feels guilty. Why do you think he feels guilty? Why does he feel guilty? Grace?
Because Ed doesn't want to help him because he doesn't want anybody to get in trouble, yet he feels bad for his cousin.
Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things where you're in trouble if you do, and you're in trouble if you don't. There's not really a right answer to this.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, double-edged sword. It's a great way to describe it. Yeah, for sure. Have you ever kept a secret from your family? I think most people could say yes to that question. How do you feel when you're keeping a secret from your family? Is it hard
No.
or easy?
Easy.
Depends on the secret, I guess, right?
Well, not like a big secret, but...
Well, I mean, there's a difference between like keeping a surprise party a secret and keeping a I'm doing something possibly illegal secret. Right? I mean, when I was a teenager, after I got my driver's license, my parents were very adamant. They were very absolutely adamant that I never, ever, ever go to a party where there's alcohol. Now, they were not wrong in requiring that of me. But I made a decision when I was in high school that I was going to go to those parties with my friends because I didn't want them to drive drunk. I never drank. I don't drink. I don't want to. I don't like the taste of it. I don't enjoy it even now. So I don't drink. But I had friends who were going and getting drunk on Friday nights and then driving. So I had a decision to make. Do I obey my parents and then live with the guilt if one of my friends drives drunk and gets hurt? Or do I disobey my parents, go to the party, drive my friends home, and make sure everybody's safe? I chose the second one. I chose to go to the parties and drive my friends home so that everyone was safe. And I kept that secret from my parents. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. Because first of all, they were all under 21, so drinking was illegal, right? So what they were doing was illegal. And if the police had come and busted the party and I was there, I would have gotten in trouble too, drinking or not drinking. So my parents were right, and I should have obeyed them. But at the time, I was making the best decision that I thought I could make, right? So sometimes when you're keeping a secret from your family, you don't like it, it doesn't feel good, but you feel like you have to. Do you see what I mean? What the difference is? And you guys are young enough that kind of secret probably hasn't, there hasn't been probably much in your life that you would have to, that you haven't run into any situations like that yet. But those are the kinds of things that you need to think about ahead of time, right? Looking back now as a parent, I would say that I picked the wrong choice. That I should have obeyed my parents and then talked to my parents about, can we figure something out so that these people who are going to go drink anyway get home safely? Because that was my concern, right? And so I should have obeyed my parents and talked to them and tried to come to another decision, to a better solution. But sometimes when you have these things come up in your life, you feel like there's not anything you can do. You feel like your hands are tied. And I think that that's where Jethro is right now, is he's got this secret he's got to keep from his family because he's trying to keep them safe, but he's trying to keep Eb safe, and he wants everybody to be safe, and he's working through trying to figure out a decision. He thinks about asking his father for help, and then he chooses not to. Why? Why does Jethro not ask his dad for help? Brady, be sure to speak up nice and
He
loud.
already had a heart attack, so I don't think he would want to put any pressure on his dad or anything like that.
Yeah. His dad's had a heart attack. He doesn't want to worry him. And if he tells his dad, then now his dad knows, and now his dad is guilty of the same thing Jethro's guilty of, hiding a criminal. So, yeah, that's a lot for a young person, 12 years old, to try and figure out and do. That's kind of a heavy load to carry, for sure. Okay, we got 5 more minutes. Here we go. 52, page 52. Now, sometimes when you have a very serious story, whether it's a novel like Across 5 Aprils or a play or a short story, but it's very serious, sometimes the author will insert a scene that's a little bit funny. We call that comic relief. It's like a pressure release valve. You release a little bit of the pressure so it doesn't explode. To me, this scene with Jenny and Jethro is kind of funny. It's not like, ha ha, I'm going to laugh for ages and ages funny. But it's a little bit funny, and it lightens the mood just a little bit before you have to kind of dive back into, like, the super serious story. What does Jenny think Jethro has done to make himself sick? Johnny?
Smoke.
She thinks he's been smoking tobacco. Now, if you're 12 years old and you're smoking tobacco, you know, it's not okay, right?
Yeah.
First of all, we know now that smoking's bad for you. Back then, they didn't know that it was bad for you. But she thinks, she has no idea what's really going on. And she thinks that he's sick because he's been smoking and making himself sick smoking. It's not like, ha ha, just I'm rolling on the floor laughing. But it's just a little bit of like, that's kind of funny that she thinks that that's it when it's really something totally different, right? So it's a little bit of comic relief. Here is a question, and this is I'm actually going to ask you this question, and we're going to leave it here because class is almost over. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to think about it. And when we come back tomorrow, I want everybody to participate in the conversation about this question, okay? Jethro avoids Jenny's questions by not giving direct answers or by changing the subject. Is this lying?
No.
Is it?
No.
I actually disagree with you, and we will talk about that tomorrow. So I want you to really think about it, okay? Is misleading the same as lying? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Meanwhile, class is over for today. You can pick your stuff up, get ready for history.